studio. Mics are on. Good morning, Lagos, and welcome to the show where we actually give you detailed analysis on newspaper stories. It's called Fresh Pressed 981, and that you should use on Twitter when you tweet at us at Smooth981FM Lagos this morning, and let us know what your take on the story are. And in the studio to do an analysis to this morning, joining Folu and myself, Valentine, we have.
Morning, Valentine.
He's at Big Coops on Twitter. Good morning to you, Ayo, as well.
Good morning.
Good morning. Find Ayo on Twitter at Esho1. And we have Fred. Good morning, Fred.
Good morning.
Welcome. So on YouTube, we're streaming live there. Type Smooth981FM Lagos in the search box and you'll find us. Hit that subscribe button so you get a prompt whenever we come on air. Plus, our WhatsApp number for interactions. WhatsApp is 0809 444 0981. We have this first story from Daily Times newspaper. This is for you, Fred. 5 banks rake 362 billion naira from investments in 6 months. It's from the headlines that read, Forex investors trade 1.13 trillion naira in 2 weeks. Now, take us through the story as we see that we're in the month of September where schools resume and parents are actually just engaging in more foreign exchange just to pay fees and some other bills, including medical bills. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, so as you said, predominantly of the foreign exchange revenue that was generated comes from like demand for students going back to school, travel allowances, medical bills, and also in the article states that the banks had invested last year in government bills, right? Because the government was trying to supplement the budget by raising money from this investment. And this are yielding now. Obviously, so when you look at this and you look further, one, it speaks to like, you know, still, I think I would rather this foreign exchange is going to schools in Nigeria. You know, we're upping the educational systems here, so we're not losing capital that is leaving the country. And at the same time, if the banks are investing in safer securities like the government bills, then they're not lending to businesses, you know, and that's, you know, and this whole environment where they're making safe returns on, obviously as a businessman I'd rather put my money in a safe return, right? But where they're making safe returns from that is yielding, is mitigating against like the growth that would come from like, you know, small businesses and businesses actually doing business and, you know, increasing employment and all.
But shouldn't the banks, like other businesses, be looking into taking more risks, at least to increase their chances of yielding more income? As we see, there's a lot of safety nets made available to them and taking advantage of it.
Yeah, but think about it. The goal of a business is to increase revenues and profits for the owners.
Correct.
So in this case, like you can't fault them though. You know, the environment creates an environment where they can make better revenues or better returns on going on a safer bet, but at the expense of the bigger good of like employment and, you know, income for a greater number of Nigerian citizens.
All right. Thank you very much, Fred, for that one. We'll move on to you, Ayo, for this next story. Punch newspaper has this report that says LASUTH consultants doctors to begin strike. So they said they had apparently embarked on a 3-day warning strike from 8 a.m. on Wednesday to 4 p.m. on Friday. But as it is right now, they are seeing that the government hasn't responded to their demands. It's the Medical and Dental Consultants Association of Nigeria, LASUTH branch, are demanding the implementation of the 2014 Consolidated Medical Salary. What are your thoughts on this one, Ayo?
So, in January 2018, Governor Akim Mbambode already approved the implementation of the commerce. Okay, and what's happening here is that it says the segment of the doctors working in LASUTH has had been left out of the payment arrangement. Now, why that was done, I don't know. I don't know why you'd remove some set of people from a particular agreement that was already in place. But this still boils down to, there's still a particular issue here that I would like to mention. You know, there's this brain drain that is actually happening in the country.
It's been happening since.
And, yeah, it's been happening since. And it's basically because of how we do not value what we should cherish. Now, the health sector in Nigeria is already underfunded. It was agreed in 2001 in the African Union that 15% of the budget will be allocated to health. But the highest we've had so far is 5.9 in 2012, and 2018 budget was 3.9%. So you can see that health sector itself actually has been underfunded, and the salary which was agreed by Commerce, which is going to was meant to like make life better for the doctors, now is now not being implemented across board. Okay, the average salary of a doctor in Nigeria is the range is between like 170 to 240 naira, thousand naira, and if these doctors consider the fact that they could earn as high as 170 to $240,000 per annum, which if you calculate in Nigerian naira, they could get as much as 6.1 million naira a month. Okay, of course, expenses are going to be higher abroad. That's why most of them are moving. And we're not saying that we should increase the salaries of doctors to 6.1 million. There was already an agreement on a better pay scale for doctors. What they're only asking for now is that they pay them accordingly, okay, across board.
Here's my worry, Ayo. Sorry to cut you short, but here's my worry. Every time you hear of this kind of stories that doctors are planning to embark on strike, like this one, they won't start on Wednesday till Friday. Do they have to resort to this for the government to listen to them?
They need to get paid, okay? It's easy for us to sit down here and say that they have their oath that they have to uphold. I get that. But the fact that they need to get paid. Now, I'm not really a fan of strike generally, but it looks like that's the only language that this our government understand, and that's sad. But they have to find a way.
Just feels like deja vu all over again.
Yeah.
Moving on now to Guardian newspaper. Lagos, remember you can send messages to our WhatsApp number 0809-444-0981. Guardian newspaper has this headline: Federal government bans quarrying activities in Abuja, probes earth tremor. So last Wednesday, Thursday and Friday, federal government had suspended blasting of trucks in reaction to blasting of rocks, rather, in reaction to the tremor that was experienced in Abuja. They said residents were scampering for safety, people were upset and pretty much worried about what was going on in that area. What's your take on this one, Fred? Looking at the fact that this quarrying activity has been going on, mining in Abuja. They said they have to suspend that activity so that experts could determine really what the cause of the tremor is beyond the quarrying.
I actually have some experience in mining sector. So what I will speak to is this shows some, with me, with all this news, you kind of look at what's the undertone, what's not being said here, right? So the mining ministry hasn't been very up to speed on monitoring activities, period, in the mining sector.
Okay.
So with this, it's just, I guess it's close to Abuja. It's close to, like, the politicians, and this an earthquake or a tremor that that's not even a thing we think of in Nigeria. Suddenly it's become an issue, and anything that has to do with life we take pretty serious, like when the Ebola crisis came in.
That's right. Yeah.
So this is now making the mining sector or the mining administrators or regulators to pay attention to something they naturally should have. Blast or blast activities should be monitored anyways. Although so quarry activity also speaks to development. If they're building more, we're blowing up more rocks, to build. It speaks to the economy is doing better. But at the same time, we need to monitor it. We need to figure out what's the distance it needs to be to a major city where you can blast rocks and all of that. So I like the development that is happening, but I want it to be consistent. Like the mining sector needs to pay attention to go, because this is a sector that can generate a lot of revenue for the country, period. Yeah. When you speak about South Africa, you speak about Australia, those are solid mineral economies, and they do pretty well, But that's my take on.
Yeah, it's a good thing where you examine that angle, because it might be easy for people to just allude it to environmental factors, it's a global warming and things like that, forgetting that, human activities are also involved.
Yes.
As well. Thank you. Thank you very much. Vanguard newspaper is next with this story. Strike. Labour gives Osun government 7 days notice. So we're seeing another strike, another deja vu moment. Now, the Joint Labour Union in Osun State, comprising Nigerian Labour Unions, NLC, and Trade Union Congress, and with other bodies, have issued a 7-day strike notice to the state government over non-payment of salary arrears. They said they haven't paid them the pensions and also gratuity. Ayo, your take on
So
this?
we're back to strike. Eh?
Yeah, we're back.
And what's funny about this is elections is in 2 weeks, or 22nd. That's
In the
like,
state?
In the states, that's how many days to this strike? Like 12 days or so. So they're embarking on 7 days. This doesn't look good for the incumbent. Of course, we know he's not running, but he's the person representing the APC. It doesn't look good on them. And what's funny is the unemployment is the highest percentage, 3% in Osun State in Nigeria at the moment. But you see that there's a ripple effect to that. They're not able to pay salary. We already know that the debt ratio of Osun State is astronomical at the point. What I would just wish that could be done is this payment they should probably sort themselves out on time, because already is the APC candidate is not the most popular amongst the 3-4 runners, and this isn't looking good for them. And
yeah, but should we be looking at popularity now? When I see stories like this, the first worry in my mind is, I mean, you've seen the trend of activities or demands that have been made or should have been made at the start of the administration wouldn't be made until it gets to its tail end, where it becomes almost irreversible, and you get people like the Labour Congress giving strike notices towards the end of the administration. Do you think this might largely be swept under the carpet? Do you think it's coming too late?
I don't think it's coming too late. I think the kind of negotiating power, okay, it's getting towards the election. I think they don't want to go on strike, okay? They want their demands to be met on time. They feel like this is election period, and the present administration will try to sort them out on time so that this doesn't happen, and they can say, hey, we sorted this out, and probably add it to their campaign promises, and realize that the fact that these people are also going to be voting. So I think it's a form of negotiation where you know that you have a better bargaining power at the time. I wish we didn't have to resort to this, but this happens quite often in the country.
I would like to chip into
Yes,
this. So it's quite interesting, because there's Osun State is rich with solid minerals, especially gold, and Oyinlola, when he was a governor, had created a system where the state government has their own solid mineral company that has about 70% of the assets in that state. So it's rich with minerals, as I said. There's a project called Segulola project that they just discovered on one of the assets. They have $1 billion worth of gold that sits there. So and that's like one piece where the state government has 70% of the potential assets in that state. So that's a huge money generating opportunity for the state that over 8 years, I don't think the governor has paid any attention to that. So when I hear that there's salaries are not paid from that state, where you have this huge
in debt ratio.
Yes, it's
sad. It's sad. It's very sad. I just wish we could just tap into these potentials that we have buried under us that we're not doing anything about.
Ask your government questions and just shake the table. Let them not stop relying on government dividends, or rather their own share of the federal allocation. Thank you very much. Then that's the end of that one.
All right,
Thank
so
you,
do keep sending in your messages to us. Make sure you tweet, use the hashtag freshlypressed981, or send us comments to our live stream. Fred, you look like you wanted to ship in something right there at the end. All right, cool. We're moving on. Next story now. The Shi'ites are marking El-Zakzaky's 1,000th day in detention. They're also asking for his unconditional release, essentially, and they do take time out to just thank their counsel, appreciate their counsel. Mr. Femi Falana, the human rights community advocate, really. So there is a quote where they say, as we mark the 1,000th day of this travesty of justice, we demand and insist that the federal government and its agencies must release our leader, Sheikh Ibrahim El-Zakzaky, and his wife unconditionally. and immediately. We do know that now El-Zakzaky has been charged to court, even though there was a 2-year period during which he was just being held in detention. What do you make of this? 1,000 days is a very long time to deprive someone of their freedom, and then only having just charged them.
You know what I think? This is okay. So we have the assistant or the vice president, sorry, who is a son. How does he feel about this? Okay, so I understand that one of the major reasons this is happening is because we know that El-Zakzaky has a lot of followership, okay, but most of them do actually participate in elections. So are they did participate in elections? I don't think this would have been treated this way it's being treated. And it's a very good thing that Falana has been at the forefront, and the concept behind it is, I don't think is a function of really whether he believes in his ideologies or the like. It's the fact that the rule of law has to be followed. And when we have the number 2 man of the country who knows the importance of the rule of law, I don't know if he advises the president. And how does the president himself feel about this? Even though you remember he stated that what was exactly, I want to quote him, don't let me misquote him.
We can't quote him verbatim.
Yes. So let's just say, but you remember,
said that there are some situations in which national interest ought to be put before
the
that
rule
of the
law.
individual.
Yeah. So I never agreed with that. I still don't agree with it. It's sad that is still in captivity. Yes, it's been charged to court now, so the case is in court. So
have changed.
Yes, it
so
has changed from
they
the
are following the rule of law
at the moment on this case, on this particular case,
Yes.
not on that. Okay.
No, this is
Okay,
what we're talking about. That's exactly that's the story.
I agree with you.
Okay, thank you very much
All
for
right,
that.
then.
I understood. Tunde, I'm going to move to you next. Interesting story from ThisDay newspaper. 37 Varsities are to commence independent power production. Now, on the surface of it, it does look like great news, where they are saying that, listen, different universities at the moment are in different phases of procurement, etc. But if we cast our minds back to 2016, it's almost like the feel-good story that they keep whipping out for this administration, because we have seen this exact headline in 2016 and 2017, and again now in 2018. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, and look, that to me that underscores there's something I always say, that look, the power ministry can embarrass the best minds. To be honest, I mean, when our very own Fashola, was giving this ministry, and with the works, we said, oh, finally we're going to see some seriousness, some serious work, some action, and some stuff going. But look, it's the amount of progress is made, and the slow going has proven my theory that, look, the power ministry is for various reasons is one of the toughest to deal with. So you take your wins where you can find them, and this is one such win. Yes, and we don't have continuity in government. So by the time this administration is out, they may not have covered. They may not even have finished the first 9. Do you understand? And the next administration moves on.
They do point out right at the tail end of this, so just to chip in, that the Nigerian Institute of Medical Research would actually, in the next few months, they hope, will be able to have a uninterrupted power supply.
Which is the key and important thing. Like universities are, education generally, and universities in particular, are very essential to the development of a nation, right? That's where the best minds should be. The quote I said should be. That's where all the research should happen. I've heard quotes of people saying that, look, the reason why the wealthy in our country, as it happens in other countries or in the West, don't fund universities is because there's no real basis to the core of their wealth, or else university is something that you pour investment in, because the outcome of that goes back into industry, right? And we don't really do enough of that. But so this is at least the first step, where people can do research, can study, you can even as simple as maintaining cultures or preserving samples. Yeah. We can't do in our schools today, in our research institutes, because of power. So this sorts those things out. So it's all in all, it's good. Let's hope it actually does happen, and we're not talking about in another 12 to 18 months.
Indeed.
All right, thank you very much. We have this message here on WhatsApp from Anthony. Anthony says, it seems we need to look critically at the issue of doctors and their pay. It is only the doctors. Is it only the doctors and the hospital? Are they the only ones not well paid? Even nurses will get better pay abroad. Psychologists, dentists, even carpenter at truck. And he even added house help self. We'll get that one. Now, reacting to the story on the foreign exchange, MI from Akoka says, The profits from FX are not unexpected. This is a back-to-school season, and demand for the greenback is massive. Medical tourism is also a substantial part of that. Wishing all parents a happy school fees.
Happy school fees. The parents in the room stretch out.
Nothing happy about that.
Up next, staying with you, Tunde, for this one. From the new Telegraph, Kogi has uncovered 4.3 billion naira worth of pension fraud. And now the report apparently is pointing to this happening under the administrations of former governors, Ibrahim Idris and Idris Wada. So again, we're seeing this habit of pointing backwards at somebody and saying, listen, this is what was going on. And of course, extolling the virtues of the current governor, just saying that, he's doing everything within his power to just put the situation right. What are your thoughts? Kogi hasn't been the epicenter of great news so far.
No, it hasn't, and no, but I mean, I don't want to move too far away from the story or how I see it. We hear this too often, right? Pension fraud, either happening at the government or happening in particular institutions, and it's a reflection of the strength of our institutions. There's really no other way. People will misbehave when there's an opportunity to misbehave, and when there are structures and institutions, aren't strong enough to define how things should be done properly. So, I mean, my first thoughts were, why do we hear this so often, especially when we have a Pensions Act, right, enacted in 2004? Why do we keep going back to this institution where we hear that, particular, institution, certain state governments have embezzled pensions funds? So, I did some quick research, and I realized that some states governments have still not complied with the law. Some people so we hear of some people are exempt. The military, for instance, is exempt from the act.
Yes.
The police have their own, but they also have a right to opt out of theirs and go to the other ones, the ones that contribute, the ones that the rest of us use. And we know the abuse that's happened in the police one, because again, that's managed by government officials. The only other group that was then exempt were people who were within 2 years of retirement when the act was enacted. That's 2004. That's a long time ago. I don't know why do we have a case or a situation where states are not fully complying with the law. Do you understand? That's the only reason why this happens. Right. So, I mean, again, it's our institutions. If we get things right, then there's no opportunity for this. Yeah, we just need to close the gaps. That's what needs to happen.
Of power, closing the gaps. Well, very interesting stuff there. Speaking of the gaps, perhaps gaps are being closed in the airline industry, and we'll explain what we mean. The Guardian newspaper gives us this story. Airlines fortunes soar. So a new wave of confidence apparently has animated the travel sector, and this is because some state-of-the-art airplanes have been acquired to replace leased equipment. Now, on the surface of it, it looks great. They're talking about a reduced lending rate in the aviation sector, saying that the banks have a bit more confidence, perhaps having something to do with the safety records over the last 3 years. No real fatalities in that time. But there is another side to this story as well. But Fred, I'd like you to please take us through this.
So, as the unstated things that are going on in this article, there are actually quite a lot of them. One is, as you said, the banks are risk of it. So if they're giving money, means that they see like there's real growth potential in the sector. It speaks also to the fact that the government policies, they made some new policies, or there are policies that are encouraging activities as like withdrawal of VAT and on commercial airlines and then spare parts. The other thing is, I actually want to speak to like there's a part here where the CEO of Air Peace is saying that the banks are throwing money at them now. Yeah. And they started
and the Russians.
Yeah. It started in 2013. So you can imagine, it started airline that came into the financial meltdown of the economy in 2015, and then in 2018 they're throwing money at you. So what I would take from this is that during that point, all unserious players were removed. So if you weren't serious and you weren't improving your efficiency, you wouldn't be in the space. So the guys that are in the space now, the guys that perfected their capability
in that rocky period.
Yes, in that rocky period, and in that too, there's huge growth opportunities because they're like bringing out new routes.
Yes, so looking at expanding regionally and internationally.
So the places they're going to UK, South Africa, Emirates, United Emirates, China, USA. Those are places Nigerians travel to a lot, right? Huge numbers of Nigerians are traveling there, and it's only 8% of Nigerians that are traveling now. You know, that means there's still growth for more participants in this route.
But speaking
which
to
means they're killing those of us who are traveling. Some of the most expensive places to travel from.
well, listen, it could get more competitive because these are local airlines that are making these investments. I mean, so it could be better. But something that the Secretary General of the Aviation Safety Roundtable
I was going to get to that, but
the group captain
so
John Ojikutu.
he's alluding to a better strategy for expansion. You know, his approach is, why don't you lease the airlines, the airplanes first, because they're buying these airplanes average of $150 million a piece. Why don't you lease them? You know, and then you that way you're getting the airline manufacturers or the partners that you have, international partners, also giving you technical crew to also improve the capability of our local crew, like exchange of technical know-how. And if that route that you're now developing proves to be profitable, then you move to, you know,
to
full purchase. You know, that way you're managing your funds better, and then the flight of, because that's $150 million that just left. You know, compared to the West, if you're going to, you pay gradually. Like we just, the bulk capital is gone, and that bulk capital could have done something else. So, in all, it shows that, you know, there's improvement in, and also the great news that there's improvement in our safety. And as I said, if there are more serious players in the space, naturally you will see the dividends in like flight safety and all of that.
Thank you very much for that, Fred.
Yeah.
We've got a couple of messages that are coming through up on Twitter and, of course, our live stream.
On Twitter, Ms. Amadi says, I've always known that the opposition party will infuse any fake statements or information to explain why they might lose the elections. Unfortunately, they've often forgotten how Buhari gathered a whopping 12 million votes alone in 3 consecutive times. Big Tay says, contrary to the statements, the APC candidate isn't the most unpopular. Osun has the least unemployment index, according to MBS data.
Interesting.
And that's reacting to the Osun story.
Okay, let's go to our final story and talk about the president, since we brought him up in the comments. All right, Premium Times has this one, 2019. Buhari is not opposed to card readers, says the presidency. And it feels as though the presidency are being forced to come out and make this statement, because we've seen over the past couple of weeks a lot of rumors, and we do see the rumors in the papers saying sources are suggesting, sources are saying the presidency is not interested in the card reader. Essentially, Mr. Esho has come out to speak and put out a full statement saying that we wish to state in clear and unambiguous terms that the issue of e-voting and use of card readers was never an issue for the president's decision to decline assent to the bill. He has raised concerns concerning some ill-prepared and flawed parts of the bill for which corrections need to be made to allow his signature to be appended, and we appeal to the National Assembly to reconvene as soon as possible to reconsider and approve the necessary corrections to the amended Electoral Act.
So is this a full statement? Really, is it a full statement in the sense that it doesn't tell us what his issues with the bill are?
Well,
it says ill-prepared and flawed parts. Please tell us what.
So here's my question to that. Is this a failing of the presidency, or should the journalists, because typically we would have seen, especially with the Premium Times, I'm used to seeing them say, here's a copy of what we've received, because they have said that the president has amended observations to it. So perhaps has it not been put out because it hasn't yet gone to the National Assembly? What are your thoughts on that?
I see the angle that you're going with, and we can't cure laziness or lazy journalism in one week
taking
or
a
in one way.
speech,
We
right?
can't, we can't do that. But these guys knowing, right? So I'll put it back to them putting out their message and putting out the message properly. They know the way journalism happens in this country. They want to get the message across. The reason why this happens is because people don't know they've left that gap. And then they're left having to respond and saying, no, it's not because of the card readers, it's because of flawed and ill-prepared parts. Please, why don't you just, since you've made the effort to make a statement, tell us what you have issue with.
Absolutely.
Right? I mean, we know there have been issues with the ordering of elections and all that. So what is it?
Yes.
Really, what issue do you have?
What are the exact observations?
If you can't tell us, then of course people would assume, and that's where we are now. Right, and for him to say that it's not an issue and that the electoral, INEC can do what it can use card readers and all of that. Sorry, I'm trying to speed up. Can use card readers and all that. Let's remember that before last elections, there was a court ruling that finally allowed the readers to be used. So let's not leave any ambiguity. Let's sort it out so there's no litigation afterwards.
Thank you very much for that, Tunde.
Thank you. William on YouTube actually sent this message. It says credit should be given where is due. Our safety record has improved significantly when compared to our African counterparts. Please let's all be involved to encourage this continued growth. A great job. Thank you very much, Williams. And I think that's the last message we can read. This one's lengthy.
Absolutely. We are done with Freshly Pressed. Thank you very much to our analysts. Find them up on Twitter. We will be tweeting their handles to you to make life a lot easier. But keep listening because coming up at 8:15, we'll be talking sports inside the locker room.
Good morning.
Get quick access to loans from Page
A minute
Financial.
over. A minute over. No, it's okay.
All right. Do you have any hard...
Have a nice week.
Nice meeting you,
Because
madam.
I'd actually look, thanks, man. Thanks, I appreciate it.
Chief.
I'd actually